Low energy, unfocused, foggy? You might be dehydrated. Whether it's hot yoga, over 100-degree weather, or too much sun. Gatorlight, with a specialized blend of 5 electrolytes, was scientifically designed to help move fluids into the body faster for rapid rehydration. Shop now at retailers nationwide. Gatorlight hydrates faster than water. Is it in you? Symptoms noted are signs of mild to moderate dehydration. Consult a healthcare professional if symptoms persist.
The new LinkedIn Hiring Pro can't undo your last hire, the no-show. Who set you back because they didn't show up on day 1, or day 2, or ever again. And now your product launch is delayed because you're talking to alien abduction podcasters to track them down. But LinkedIn Hiring Pro can help make sure your next hire sticks. In fact, businesses who use LinkedIn are 24% less likely to reopen a role in the next 12 months. Hire right the first time with LinkedIn Hiring Pro. Post a free job today at linkedin.com/quality.
AI is moving fast across the enterprise. But without visibility, it's just chaos. Different tools, different models, different teams using AI in completely different ways. ServiceNow turns that chaos into control. With the AI Control Tower, you see all your AI across the business in one place. What it's doing, what it's done, and what it's about to do. So you stay in control. To put AI to work for people, visit servicenow.com.
From the Fifth Quarter Studio in Madison, Wisconsin, you're listening to the Coaching Youth Hoops Podcast.
They're playing basketball.
Here's our hosts, Steve Collins, and Bill Flitter.
Welcome back, or welcome to the Coaching Youth Hoops Podcast. Today, we have a guest, Tim Livingston. Tim, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Tim, tell us who you are, what you do. Give us a background.
Yeah, no, we have a company called Aces Nation. Basically, we offer a complete coaching management system designed for coaches to be able to improve player development, improve coaching efficiency, and hopefully along the way boost retention so that players aren't just jumping from one program to another. It's around, really built around how do we develop players better. The company's been around for some time. I kind of backed into the player development side, Bill, because we did college recruiting for 16 years. That's where it came from. My background in sports, I grew up in Memphis, Tennessee, played with some great players. I was a basketball guy, played basketball at University of South Florida a long time ago. And, and the game and sports as a whole has really changed and evolved a lot since we played, or for sure since when I played. And so when I got on to corporate America in 2008, I got into college recruiting. And I got into it because I wanted to find my passion, and which was really, I thought was basketball, to be honest. But I love sports, but I also love kids, and I love seeing kids succeed. And as I got into the college recruiting side, I started as a recruiter, working with individual athletes that were trying to get placed in college that had been overlooked or weren't getting the type of exposure that they were, looking for. So I started doing that. My first 2 kids were actually swimmers. I didn't really know anything about swimming. I can't swim 10 laps. I have a heart attack. But I know what is marketable, and I know what colleges are looking for. It just so happened that both of these kids were All-Americans in high school. They were tremendous, both of them. And they both went. One went to Clemson, one went to Purdue. They both swam in the 2012 Olympic trials, and neither one of them got recruited to go to college. And so when I started down that path, I started to help a whole lot of kids who had been overlooked in the process, right?
Okay.
And I realized that the recruiting was broken. It was just, why should they need a recruiter? It made no sense to me. So after doing it for a couple of years, I started to evolve and so there's got to be a better way to help coaches to be able to help their athletes so they don't need to go external, right? If I don't know the kid, then why should you be coming to me? If they play for you every day, you know them better than anybody else.
Right.
And really, at the end of the day, no kid's going to get recruited without coach support, whatever coach that is, whether it's their high school coach, their travel coach, or AAU coach, whatever it is, they're going to need somebody on their side, to help get them to where they want to go. So, long story short, we evolved into a software, and we became one of the largest college recruiting softwares in the country. And then in 2020, COVID hit. That started to change things a little bit because we didn't know what we were going to do when sports stopped, just like everybody.
Right,
and so we started down the path of creating a performance training, virtual performance training, really digital. And we created a platform, and just to kick it off during COVID. And in about 6 weeks or so, we had about 1,800 kids training on our platform. And we're like, wow, we've stepped into something here.
Yeah.
As we fast forward a little bit through COVID, the company that I was working with, tremendous company called College Fit Finder, we were a private label reseller of their platform. They got into some trouble because of COVID. And so they called and said, you're the best guy to take over the company. So we took it over and we built it back up. And then, at that same time, that's when the first Eddie O'Bannon case came out. That was the precursor of NIL, right?
Yeah.
And so as that evolved, I started to see the whole recruiting world change. And I didn't know where it was going to go, but I knew it wasn't going in the right direction, especially from a traditional sense of recruiting. So in the end of 2023, we sold off 50,000 athletes to Sports Recruits, another recruiting platform, a very good company that had great product and a great platform. And then they just recently sold to IMG. And during that time, we made the transition to focus in on player development. We started with performance training, and then we've expanded it to all aspects of player development. That's really how it started and where we are. We now have the most comprehensive coaching management system in the country. And it's really designed to help coaches make their players and their teams better. That's what our focus is.
Let's take a step back. And again, we're going to get into player development for sure. But I know there's coaches and parents listening right now asking this question. What are colleges looking for and when they're recruiting athletes? Can you give us like maybe your top three? And has that changed since NIL?
Yeah, I think the three things that we always focused on that I would tell everybody. Well, the first thing I would say outside of the three is I'm here to tell you what you need to know, not what you want to hear. And a lot of people
that's you as being the recruiter, you're saying, or as
correct.
Yeah.
And I could tell you that when I spoke as if I was a college coach, because I dealt with enough college coaches to understand what they were looking for, right?
Yeah, right.
And the truth is that, and basketball is a little different. We can get into that, but the three things that never change are the three A's: athletics, academics, and attitude. I always said that athletics is what gets you noticed, academics is what gets you in, and attitude is what gets you recruited. So wherever you were in those three buckets, in those three silos, you could not be average in any of them. You have to be good at a minimum in one of them, but you better be exceptional in the others. And I always said too that if you really look at those three buckets, it would probably also determine what level you're going to play.
Good point. Yeah.
If you're really good academics and you're really good attitude and you're a good athlete, then maybe you're going to play D3. And as your athleticism changes and your academics change and those things adjust accordingly, it moves you up the rank.
Yeah.
And I really believe that to be, if I had the simplest formula, that's the formula.
I like that. I like the simplicity of that.
Then relatively, how do you compare to everybody else around you in those three buckets? Because you could be really good academically on your team, but that doesn't mean that you're really good academically compared to other players in the country,
Yeah.
and that goes for all three. And I think that's universal. And those are and attitude's the big bucket, right? Academics is very, very metric driven. You know what your grades are, you know type of classes you've had, and you know what your test scores are. It's very straightforward. Then but when you go to attitude, that's got a lot of subjectivity to it, right?
Right.
That is, are you coachable? What is your attitude? Are you a leader? What is your work ethic? Because you can have all the athleticism in the world, but if you're poor in character, or you don't have a good work ethic, or you're not a good teammate, nobody's going to want you there.
Yeah. Well, and I don't want to
Those are
go down this rabbit hole of because we're here to talk about player development, but maybe this leads into player development a little bit as well. But I could make the argument of, well, come on, coach. There's some, that player's, he can't spell his own name, but man, his athletic ability is off the charts. And you could also
Right.
argue, God, his attitude is the worst, but man, can he, play X? Yeah.
Yep.
So different coaches probably weight those things differently or overlook a few of those things, right?
Right.
But is at the end of the day, it's like, and again, like you said, Division 1 versus Division 3, completely my different criteria there, right?
Correct.
So then if I have a bad attitude and bad grades, but I'm the best, I'm number one recruit, you would get some flack from your booster club if you're not going after that player if you're a Division 1 college program,
Right.
right?
But that doesn't mean that kid's going to last there.
Mhm.
You know. That
Well, we
doesn't
know
mean,
kids don't last today anyway. Just go to the next team, right? For the money
correct.
now in college, right?
Yeah, well, that's why today's a whole new world, right? And that's why
Hmm.
I think you even mentioned before nil, because now, between nil and between, the college portal, before, if you're a Division 1 player, you'd have to sit out for a year when you transferred,
Oh, right. Yeah.
and now that's not in existence anymore. So that changes things a lot.
Yeah. Well, here in California, we just had this discussion over the weekend. So, California, long state, right? In Southern Cal, okay, you can, this is high school now. You can switch teams. No matter. You're not sitting
Wow.
out. Northern California, you have to sit out 6 games at least, unless there's some other egregious thing that, you get caught doing, right? So they're trying to normalize the entire state of California, but they're being influenced by Southern California because Southern California stacks their teams. You could literally be playing last week on Team A and like, oh, it's not working for me, or this other team has won 3 games now, and we had lost all 3, so I'm going, right. There's some of that going on, right? So they're trying to normalize that. I think there should be a sit out period to stop that, and definitely in high school. Now maybe with college, because of the money involved, different story. I don't know. You can make an argument, but I don't know. I think we're not. What's in the best interest of the kid and the program, and to stop. I mean, you could say switching from one school to the other is in the best interest of the kid, and that's probably the argument they would make. Oh, it's academics over here, his friends are, maybe over here. And it's obviously likely not about the athletics, they're going to say, right? So
Oh,
I
yeah,
don't know
for
where that
sure.
was going, but
And the high school thing is a whole different conversation than in college. When I was referring to it, I was saying in college,
right.
you couldn't transfer.
Yeah.
You'd have to sit out for a year unless you
Yeah.
transferred down, from D1 to D2. So, but you couldn't go D1 to D1 without having to sit out for a year.
Yeah.
So now everything is different.
I can't even imagine coaching in that when as soon as the final buzzer on your season ends, you could be looking at a whole new roster, or a big portion of your roster being new the next year. So you're really just coaching 1 year, right? I mean, the
Yeah.
mind shift has really changed, especially at the upper levels, right?
100%. But I also
Yeah.
think, going back to your original question, the three A's, I think for the most part, it's still there. It's not the same as it was because it's a business. No matter what anybody wants to say, sports and even youth sports has become a business of sports.
Yeah.
And it is about, and it used to always be about money in college football predominantly, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Now it's about money. And I think the biggest shift that people don't want to accept or acknowledge, especially right now, people that don't know any better, is that recruiting and traditional recruiting is not what it was. Now, recruiting is shifting into more of scouting. People used to want to use those words interchangeably, right? But it's not the same. You have pro scouts that are scouting for players that can play at the next level. And I understand that college coaches would go out and scout, but they would really go to recruit and do player evaluations to determine who could come and play on their team. Could they play at that level? But now they're looking at people, and the shift is that it's more like pro scouting than it is around the previous traditional recruiting.
Yeah. Yeah, interesting. Well, let's dive into this player development. So I want to start with this, and maybe this kind of set the stage. One of the things you said at the very beginning is you played basketball, the game has changed, right? And everything around, let's just focus on basketball since we're coaching youth hoops, right? How has it changed at the youth level? Follow-up question is, and with that change, what are the positives and negatives to that change? And third question is, how has that affected player performance or impacted player performance? All right.
I got short-term memory loss, so I'll probably forget all the questions.
No worries. I got you.
Bring it back to me. But, how has it changed? First and foremost, it's changed because all seasons are now in season. I think that, to me, that's one of the biggest changes.
There's no off season, you're saying?
No,
yeah.
There's always, historically, there's always been 3 seasons. And even pros have 3 seasons, right? There's in season, there's off season, and there's preseason. And you shift how you train and what you do during each of those seasons.
Yeah.
If you take the NFL or the NBA, but NFL is a great example. Even Major League Baseball is a great example, right? Massively long season, then they get off for X number of months, then they come back for spring, and then they roll into the new season. So it is very segmented into those seasons. And we do not have that in youth sports at all. And there's a reason they have it in pro sports, right? You have to have time for your body to recover. You have to have time to be able to train hard to become, better before the new season begins. And then you work on refining what you've done and implementing what you've done in the off season, in the preseason, so that your periodization training has peaked you right when the season begins, right?
Yeah.
But if you roll straight through a year and you do nothing but play, you can't get better. B, you're not recovering. And I think that's, if I had to say the one biggest thing, is there's not recovery time. Young athletes. And if there was going to be recovery time, it should be at least a shift into another sport, right? So that as you move from one sport to the next sport, you're training your body differently. You're using different muscle groups. You're preparing differently, which then makes you more of an all-around type of player, right?
Yeah.
I think the pressure that is put on these kids, you're not getting any better in games. You're just not. You get better, and you get better when you're not playing the games. So what are you doing when you're not playing the games, so that then you can go out and execute or realize where you're deficient when you get into those games, when you get up against real competition? How has that training prepared you for that level of play? And I think that's where the biggest challenge is that these kids we've gotten to a point, Bill, where the sport, whether anybody wants to acknowledge it or accept it or not, has been segmented into three groups.
Okay.
Group A, the kid is born with God-given athletic ability. Group B is on the other end of the spectrum, born into a family that can afford a whole hell of a lot of private training.
Mm.
And then everybody else falls into group C, group 3, right in the middle. And they're the majority.
Right. Yeah.
So those kids aren't going to improve very much and not going to come out of anything anywhere at the end of the day at the next level most of the time. If you think about how many kids can play in college, right? But in basketball, it's like 3.5% of the high school players can play in college, right? I think it's like 3.9% of the girls and 3.5% of the boys, something along those lines, right?
That sounds about right. Yep.
So then you're looking at, I mean, if you're talking 3%, you're talking 3 out of 100. I mean, you're talking 30 out of 1,000, right? That are going to play, and that's D1, D2, and D3 all put together. So what are we talking about here at the end of the day, right? So the guys that have the God-given athletic ability, somehow or another, they might not be the best skilled basketball player or the best skilled player in whatever sport it is, but they have ability that can't be taught, right?
Yep.
So then they find people, or people will find them and then work with them as long as they have the attitude and the aptitude to work hard or coachable and to learn, then they're going to play and they're going to excel. The kids on the other end of the spectrum, the kids who have a lot of private training, typically they're not the ones that have the God-given athletic ability, but then they get the training that makes them highly skilled, and they get the type of training that raises them to a level of competency in athleticism, right? Where they can compete. And sometimes it's because they've been taught methods of how they can adjust and adapt to their deficiencies,
right?
But they're highly skilled, right?
Yeah.
And those guys many a times become like the role players, in those teams.
Yeah.
And they're brought on for a specific reason. I got a guy that can shoot, and man, he can shoot, and he's my 3-point shooter, right? So he may or may not start on that team, but he has a role to play. And when he comes off the bench, he knows what his role is, right? But if you fall, and let's just say that of the 3.5%, let's call it 4 for easy math, 2% on one side, 2% on the other, that means that there's 96% of the people in the middle who aren't probably going anywhere, and they never know that they're not going anywhere because they have no clue that they're not going anywhere because they think they're in line with everybody else.
Right.
And they go do exactly what everybody else does, which is get on a team and go play games and play games and play games and play games and want to play in all these tournaments that are supposedly, showcase
exposure
events.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we talked in a previous conversation, the difference, there's a big difference between showcasing and exposing. What they most of the time they do is they play in exposure tournaments. And what is an exposure tournament? It is exposing you to where you fall compared to everybody else. It exposes your weaknesses and deficiencies compared to the people that we just mentioned who are in those other categories.
Yeah.
And that's what I see. And we're not doing enough to raise the floor on the development side to make sure that players are developing holistically. And there's 4 aspects of development, no matter what sport it is: technical, tactical, physical, and mental. It doesn't matter what sport it is. Technical is your skill-based abilities. Tactical is your strategy and game IQ, right? Understanding the game. And then physical is your athleticism, and mental is how well you can handle. Are you mentally resilient? Are you tough enough? Can you handle it? Can you perform under pressure? Those are the 4 aspects. And sports nutrition is kind of like a subcategory that rolls directly into the whole aspect of.
Can you repeat those one more time?
Technical.
Yeah, technical.
Tactical.
Okay.
Physical and mental.
Okay. And then you're saying nutrition falls in under.
It falls under physical.
Oh, okay.
It falls under physical, but I think that it probably falls even into physical and mental, right?
Low energy, unfocused, foggy? You might be dehydrated. Gatorade Zero powders have been scientifically designed to help improve hydration balance in the body. With a clinically proven electrolyte blend and no artificial colors or flavors. Great tasting hydration no matter where you're going. Shop now online or at retailers nationwide. Gatorade, hydrates better than water. Is it in you? Symptoms noted are signs of mild to moderate dehydration. Consult a healthcare professional if symptoms persist.
The new LinkedIn hiring pro can't undo your last hire, the no-show. Who set you back because they didn't show up on day one, or day two, or ever again. And now your product launch is delayed because you're talking to alien abduction podcasters to track them down. But LinkedIn Hiring Pro can help make sure your next hire sticks. In fact, businesses who use LinkedIn are 24% less likely to reopen a role in the next 12 months. Hire right the first time with LinkedIn Hiring Pro. Post a free job today at linkedin.com/quality.
So let's dive into that a little bit. So the game has changed. The structure of youth sports has changed, right? We're looking at exposure tournaments, like you mentioned, where kids are playing more games all the time. There is no off season. Is there anything else into that group of how the game has changed, do you think, before we dive into kind of some solutions?
Obviously then you get, we get back into the whole recruiting stuff, and that has now changed the game because the expectations that are being placed on kids to perform and the expectations that are being placed on them most of the time are not what they're placing on themselves. They're the expectations of the adult that they have to try to live up to that are being set by the adults around them, whether it's their parents or the coaches.
Yeah. I'm in a unique position because I work with athletes along those three spectrums that you had mentioned. So, ones that are just like, you're just amazed at how talented and skillful they are, right? They could pick up any ball, right? And probably do it okay, better than that middle portion. And so I'm on a board of our local rec league, right? And we're trying to, and thank goodness for our director on that league. Her heart isn't, she's been there for so long. Her heart is just into it and doing the right thing, and really has insight into looking over the pay for play youth sports and trying to keep it fun and right, and then the other kids who are training to be better, right, and working their tail off to get better, and on one hand training, and I know where it can get out of hand, but training and like going after a goal and just trying to get better is great and teaches them, being disciplined and all of that. Now, obviously that can get carried away, and we've seen that, and we can tell stories all day long about that. But teaching them how to, where's your starting point? I'm at point B, I want to get to A, right? So how do I get there? And here's the path. There's something to be said about that. It's a good life lesson, right?
Absolutely.
But I think we can, there's always extremes in those buckets, right? We're training too much, playing too much, and all of that. Okay, so it's you and me. We're on this call right now. We're doing our part to, a little drop of water in the big ocean. Money is ruling this all, a lot of it, right?
Yep.
So that, where it has gone to the extreme. So we're not going to change it overnight. But with your skill level, you can at least make it better, a little bit better for the kids. So let's dive into how do we, in looking at your the four buckets, the mental side, the tactical, the physical. How can we take a player that has no off season, keep them injury free, keep their head in the game, keep them playing? What are little things we can do as a coach, as a parent, in each of those buckets?
That's a great question, and I do think it does kind of depend on a few things. But
Okay.
if I'm going to if I want to make it just broad based, right? a few of the things we have to do is, number one, kids need more recovery time.
Okay.
Your kids have to have recovery time. There's because their bodies have to be able to heal, right? You've got to have
Yeah.
some downtime. Anybody that's really into sports performance will tell you there has to be recovery time. There are trying to determine what direction to go with this. Another thing that needs to change, because it's not just about performance, is also we don't do a good job with strength training. And strength training is not just about getting stronger, right? If kids aren't getting bigger, stronger, faster, and more powerful, they're not going to advance. Period. Period. Power takes into account explosiveness, it takes into account speed, it takes into account strength, it takes into account quickness, it takes into account everything, right? If a kid isn't getting more powerful, then they're not going to advance because other people around them will, right? So, but how much do you see kids in the weight room in high school? I can tell you, I live in Tampa, Florida, and I can tell you I had a meeting in my office with every athletic director in my county, the ninth largest school district in the country. And I had ADs that literally sat in our auditorium and said to me that the girls in their school never into the weight room. Never into the weight room. So, first of all, that was like very disturbing to me to hear that, right? But they're not getting stronger. And if you look at the science behind strength, a kid needs to be doing some form of strength training, a minimum in season, 2 days a week. If they're not doing some form of strength training, they're actually getting weaker. And so, but how many kids do you know that don't do any strength training at all?
Yeah. It's not part of the sports program at the high school level. So, but where does that start? You said it's not just about, I think this is what you said, but not just about lifting weights. So let's look at, again, we could dive deep into all of these subject areas, right? But let's take a look. So if I took your word, and I know it's not what you were saying, but if I took it at face value, and okay, my fifth graders, we need to get in the weight room and start lifting weights.
No,
we know that's not true. But what do we do? Yeah. So what do we do though? Do we worry about that at a grade school level? High school, I definitely see that. But what about at the younger levels?
We have, even at the younger level, because even though you're not building the same kind of strength, I mean, we don't push anything other than body weight training for middle school kids, right? Youth, and at the younger age. So if we break it up, let's just say we break it between elementary school, middle school, high school, and above, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Your middle school kids, we don't even do the types of training that are teaching them the foundation of athleticism.
Okay.
Right? There are kids that don't know how to skip. That
good point.
There are kids that have no no foundation to athleticism. We should be building foundational elements for all of our kids so that as they move from this group to this group to this group, they're able to then progress in the things that they do, right? So if you take the kids and you build elementary kids around foundational movement, functional movement, right? Flexibility, mobility, balance, start the process of some form of strength, nothing extreme, right? But making sure that these kids have coordination and solid functional movement, because then when they get to the next level, now you get to middle school. Now middle school, you can start building strength training through body weight based type of training, right? Then as they move into high school, they're now in a position to be able to then enter a weight room and be able to start that process, right? But we either don't do it or we put kids in where they progress through the process. They haven't done it in elementary school. Nobody's really focused on it in middle school. Then they get to high school and they go into a weight room. And most of the high schools don't have a certified strength coach.
Yeah.
These kids just go into the weight room, and then you got coaches just tell them to go do this workout. Nobody's taught them how to do a proper bench press or a back squat or anything of those natures, right? But those are built into their workouts. They're not tracking any type of progression of how they're improving, how much they've done. Are they doing it the right way? Are they training too much in one part of their body and not enough in the other part of their body? So then their body is not balanced. So are you building both the biceps and the triceps at the same time? Are you building your hamstrings and your quads? Because if you're not balancing your training, then you're going to be over strengthened in one area, which then is going to lead to injury, right? Or we don't do anything. Let's go back to the girls a minute. Girls have an 8 times greater likelihood of an ACL tear than guys. 8 times. And you and I know that, and it's statistically proven, right? Yeah. But yet we go back to the comment that I made that the girls don't even enter the weight room. Right?
Yeah, right.
And the coaches, they run their practices and do things like that, and then practice is done. But they're not doing the types of things during the practice or post-practice for 10, 15 minutes to strengthen the hips and the hamstrings and the quads that then prevent ACL tears. It's not even about you're getting them stronger, yes, but it's not about development. A lot of strength training and things that aren't being done are also about injury prevention.
Yeah, that's
and
a good
the
point.
one thing that's going to ruin a kid's career is when they hurt, and they may never be able to bounce back from it. It may never come back, either because they don't have the money or the capacity to do the type of physical training. They don't follow through with the post recovery stuff they need to do for various reasons. They go back and play way too soon because they believe,
or way too much too soon too, right? I mean, or just even way too much. Just like the story I was telling you off air, right? The 3 ACL tears.
That's because they feel like they're expected to go back.
I'm falling behind, coach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So I need to catch up. Right. So I got to play more games. So give me some, again, I love this. So at the grade school level, it should be focused on movement. This is breaking down real simple terms. Middle school, maybe we're talking about, what's that?
Functional movement.
Yeah, functional movement. Next, then we can start getting into body weight exercises. And then in a high school level, we're talking about weight training. So I think a lot of coaches, are at least more familiar with, weight training, the concept of it, get in the weight room, lift some weights. Obviously, there's the caveats of doing it right. And having the right program for the sport that you're in that season. Okay. But let's talk to the grade school coaches right now. Let's talk about the functional movement. So I have a 60 or 90-minute practice twice a week. Give me, of that 60 minutes, how much would you spend on functional movement activities? Is it carved out separately as, okay, now we're doing our functional movement activities, and then we're going to get our ball handling, and then we're going to get into everything else? Let's start there, and then we'll go to the middle school and talk about body weight exercises. So what can I do as a coach for my kids?
So part of, a big part of functional movement can also come through dynamic warm-up.
Oh, okay.
So you can work on dynamic warm-up movement, and within that, you're working on movements that are going to establish a base foundation for mobility and flexibility and balance. And it's not, super complicated, types of things to be done.
Give me as an example of something best you can.
Okay. So even things like squats, right? Air squats.
Okay.
Are we able to get ourselves in a balanced position and keep our heels on the floor to be able, through that process?
Yeah.
Are we getting enough dynamic warm up and not just static stretching? Because a lot of kids don't stretch, at all. Yeah. As you do those dynamic warm ups, what type of footwork are we doing that focuses on balance, that focuses on, on agility, through that process?
Okay.
Are we making sure that if we're doing dynamic warm-up for these things, are we making sure that we're not just putting them out there and having one of the kids on the team lead the workout? Or are we making sure that they're following the right form and technique through that process? Because you see a lot of that too. They
That's
just go
true.
out and do it. You see kids
Right.
do those dynamic warm-ups. I mean, half of them are doing them right, half of them are doing them fully, but nobody is on top of them because they don't
You're right.
realize the importance of that.
Yeah.
It has a purpose, right? And it's not just to waste of time or, to get warmed up. It's how are we able to use that time efficiently that we already have?
Yeah.
And the other thing I would say to you, Bill, is that,
Yeah.
and I know this is a lot harder because they're not with them, but most of the time, depending on whether it's a school team or whatever, but most of the time you only get them a couple times a week,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So if you can start to establish a process that you get your kids doing some of the things, even if it's just like the dynamic warm-up type stuff on a daily basis.
Well, I always tell them, hey, I don't know, you're on your phone. Stand up and do something. And you can still look and scroll. And, I'm just trying to do the combination of things, not start a new habit necessarily, but take a habit they already have, which is checking their phone. Or you're sitting down with the family, 5 minutes of your movie time or your television time, just go off to the side and do some dynamic stretching of some sort, right? And mobility, like you
exactly.
said. So find
But the other part of this is people don't realize that they're not going to get better at practice. They're going to get better. They get to practice.
Good point.
To practice specific things. You're not going to get if everybody just shows up at practice every day and nobody does anything else, then you're never going to level up on anybody. You're always going to stay at the same level compared to everybody else. And then we go back to what we talked about in the beginning. The guy who's athletically talented versus the guy who's getting that extra time. The guy who's getting all that extra time is getting better because he got the extra time.
Yeah.
So you can't expect to be better just showing up at practice. It's not
You got to
gonna
be
happen.
working. Yeah. You got to, and to the point where, again, you can get carried away. I go from practice, then I have a trainer, and then all this, that, and the other thing.
And that gets out of control.
And it gets out of control, right? This is about show up for structured practice twice a week with your school team, your whatever, your club team, and then just go play in the playground.
Yep.
Right? Get some shots up on your own. Or hey, go, we were talking about, go play with your mom or your dad or aunt, uncle, family member, whatever it is. Just, go shoot around and no structure, just go play, right?
Yeah, and that's how you have and that's how you'll continuously have fun, right?
Right.
Because
Right.
this whole development thing, and we're going to get to it, I'm sure, at some point, but let's just nail it now.
Yeah.
70% of all kids quit sports at 13 years old.
Yeah.
Okay, that hasn't changed in
It's a
10
huge
years.
number. Yeah.
And it's statistically proven over and over again, right?
Yeah.
And the reason, the number one reason they say that is because they say the kids are no longer having fun,
Mm-hmm.
right? And this is ultimately what was the catalyst for this podcast, right?
Yeah.
They're not having fun because they can't contribute and they can't compete. And therefore, especially in the pay-to-play market, they are not living up to the expectations of the adults that are around them, their parents and the coaches.
Yeah.
If they can't contribute, they're out there with their friends. They want to be part of something. They
That's
want to
right.
be
Yeah.
able to contribute to something bigger than themselves, right? It's what are they playing for? They're playing for their team. They're playing for all of them to win together. If they can't contribute to that, they're not going to have fun being out there because it's going to feel like a job or an obligation, right?
Yeah.
So they have to, and if they can't compete, the coach isn't going to put them out there because he wants to win. But the reality is that coaches and adults want to win more than kids want to win.
Right.
Kids want to win, don't get me wrong. But George Washington University did a study on a thing called fun maps several years ago.
Okay.
And the fun maps was it took a group of parents, players, and coaches, and it had them all define fun, right? They came up with, I want to say, don't quote me on it, 81 different definitions of fun.
Of fun. Okay.
Of fun. 81. Then they broke those into 11 categories, and the kids broke those down. But of the 81, winning from the kids was approximately number 48.
Mm.
But winning is not number 48 for parents and coaches.
Yeah. Yeah.
So those expectations are completely out of alignment between players, parents, and coaches.
Well, and I'll tell you what happens, right? Let's just, because I can hear some coaches saying, well, if we don't win, we're going to lose families to teams that are winning. And I see it, of course, right? So look around, just I'm in the Bay Area, and it's, I see these kids going and the parents going off to these other programs that win a lot, right? And so they have all of this talent on one team. And, a lot of times I see the kids honestly suffer from that, right? Or like you said, stop playing or get burned out so they don't even play in high school anymore. And it's just like, what are you chasing? So
Right.
I don't want to go negative on this, but that's the reality of what's happening. We're here to, okay, what else can we do? Like the sports
Right, but
performance.
let's stick with that for a second.
Yeah.
Right? The reason they're not contributing and competing is because they're not developing.
Yeah.
They're not developing. And when I say not developing, they're not developing holistically in those 4 categories we talked about earlier. In one or some of those. If they can't physically compete because they haven't developed physically and they're not quick enough or they're not strong enough, then they can't play.
Yeah.
And you know how it is in basketball. It's worse than other sports in the sense that there's certain height things that height tables that tie into the position you're going to play, right? Especially the younger levels. And then you get to a point where if you can't guard a position above you, right? If I'm a 4 and I can't guard a 3, if I'm a 3 and I can't guard a 2, if I'm a 2 I can't guard a 1, well, I'm not going to be out there, right?
Yeah.
Or if I don't understand, if I can't run the plays right, and I don't execute, that's the tactical side. If I can't handle the ball well enough to be able to bring it down the court, I'm not going to be on the court, right?
Yeah.
And if I can't handle mentally, the pressure or whatever the case might be, I'm not going to be out on the court either. So if we're not developing in those 4 categories.
Low energy, unfocused, foggy. You might be dehydrated. Gatorade Zero powders have been scientifically designed to help improve hydration balance in the body. With a clinically proven electrolyte blend and no artificial colors or flavors. Great tasting hydration no matter where you're going. Shop now online or at retailers nationwide. Gatorade, hydrates better than water. Is it in you? Symptoms noted are signs of mild to moderate dehydration. Consult a healthcare professional if symptoms persist.
The new LinkedIn hiring pro can't undo your last hire, the no-show. Who set you back because they didn't show up on day 1, or day 2, or ever again. And now your product launch is delayed because you're talking to alien abduction podcasters to track them down. But LinkedIn Hiring Pro can help make sure your next hire sticks. In fact, businesses who use LinkedIn are 24% less likely to reopen a role in the next 12 months. Hire right the first time with LinkedIn Hiring Pro. Post a free job today at linkedin.com/quality.
If we really break it down, that's what's causing this kids not to have fun. Kids have fun when they're learning something and they're doing better and they're creating and they're getting better. They have fun because they're have a positive experience around where they are compared to where they were. Right?
Well, none of this, at least I don't remember it, and maybe it's because I don't remember it, but when we played, none of this, we never talked about mental, physical, nutrition, dynamic stretching and warm-ups, and we did them in practice, but not, I don't know, the discussions have changed. Is it because things have gotten so structured and they have to because we're not playing in the playground anymore. We're not skipping. We're not doing all of these other activities. We're not riding our bikes around. Now we don't even have to pedal anymore, right?
Right. Yeah.
I'm assuming that's why we have to now really focus on these categories and incorporate them into practices. Is that?
I think that's a big part of it, right? But then again, the question would be, when does that kid have time to go ride his bike around the neighborhood?
Yeah.
When do they have time to go to the park and play? I mean, really, they're constantly on the go now. And if we look at basketball, when you and I were playing, how many AAU teams were around when you were playing?
No, I mean, none that I remember at all, right? That wasn't a
Our
thing until,
AAU, I played on the junior Olympic team in Memphis, and there was only a handful of teams, right?
yeah.
There was only two major junior Olympic teams in Memphis at the time, and our team and one other one. But it was, an AAU tournament was not what it is now. It
Hmm.
got to a point where AAU wasn't even AAU. They would just lease out their license and their logo and their brand for $50, and then anybody could be AAU. And then
Hmm.
when they started down that path, then we got to a point where if a parent didn't like what was going on and his kid wasn't playing enough or he wasn't starting, then that parent's like, I'm just going to start my own team.
Yeah.
And now
Yeah.
everybody started their own team. So we've watered the thing down so much from a talent perspective and from a athletic perspective, and and we have so many damn teams, that didn't exist before. So now everybody's playing anywhere all the time, jumping from here to there to wherever, right? And we've lost all. It goes back to all those things have led into not having those seasons where you
Hmm.
could go do other things.
Yeah. I had a discussion with a high school coach the other day. It was just, we were just sitting there chatting, and he was talking. This is a good segue into seasons. He said, "Oh, I have this player on my team that she wants to get her ears pierced, and we're starting the basketball season now, and I just think that is the most selfish thing she could be doing right now because she knows that she's not going to be able to take them out for six weeks, whatever the time frame is, right?" And she goes, "Why doesn't she do that in the off season?" And I turned to him and I said, "Off season? There is no off season. You're an AAU coach too. Like you would tell her that in the spring. Oh, that's the most selfish thing. You tell her that and right before the actual high school. Oh, it's the most selfish thing. When could she do it?" And I said, that's a rite of passage for a lot of young ladies, and it happens at different ages. So there's ways to work around it. It's like, let her be a kid. Let her be a female. Maybe that makes her feel a certain way. She's then going to end up being a better player for you. Like, we take some of these little things like ear piercing and turn them into, oh, she's doing that to spite me, right? Or she's doing that against her team. It's like, coaches, relax. Like,
Yeah.
they're kids first. They're not mini adults, right? You think about your own kids and the you know stupid
It
things
feels it
that they
feels
do, and
even if there's not
it's
money,
like,
it feels like a business, right? It's all
yeah.
it's that way.
Oh,
And to your point, you asked me earlier about like the mental and the nutrition and when all that
yeah,
came in.
yeah,
And I think honestly, we didn't know any better, right? I was at a family dinner thing the other night, and we were talking
mhm,
about how when we were growing up, we would lay in the back windshield, in the back of the windshield of the car, right?
yeah,
Or
yeah,
we
yeah,
had a dang station wagon with wood paneling on the sides, right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
we'd lay in the back of the station wagon. Um, People did things because they didn't know any better at the
yeah,
time,
right,
right?
yeah, yeah,
And science and technology and the
mm,
advancement of all these things, we now know more, right? And just simple, but some of the most simple things like the importance of hydration, right? People say, "Oh, you got to drink more water," whatever. They have no idea how hydration improves your
mm,
performance or can impact
right,
your
yeah,
performance, right?
absolutely,
Um, and then when they're dehydrated, and it's one of those things. I mean, dehydration, you might as well be mental health. You can't see it, you don't know it, right?
hmm,
But it's
hmm,
there. And
yep,
then
yep,
when they don't perform, people get upset because they're not performing, but they physically are unable to perform,
that's right,
right?
yep,
And so, kids eating, and I know you see it all the time. You're eating pizza between games, a hamburger and fries, drinking a Coke, whatever it is. All those things affect you from a physical perspective, right? And then that impacts your performance. And we
hmm,
didn't know those things before. And now we do. On the mental side, there's so much out there now about mental health
yep,
that Nobody talked about mental health when we were kids.
Hmm.
Nobody talked about kids being anxious or depressed
Stop your
or
crying. Get back out there, right?
I mean, nothing. But we have to acknowledge that it's real, right?
Yeah.
And one of the things that we do in our company with our platform, one of the
Mhm.
things that I am most focused on is when organizations work with us, leveraging our daily readiness. Because our
That's
daily
right. Yeah.
readiness and measuring and tracking daily readiness are the things that have nothing to do with your athleticism or your skill, but they impact everything you do in life every day, whether it's at practice, a tournament game, and it's sleep time, sleep quality, stress, mood, fatigue, and muscle soreness. Those 6 things will impact every single thing that kid does. And for coaches to have the ability to be aware of where a player is
That's a
as
good
an
point. Yeah.
individual person, not as a player, as an individual, and then how the culmination of all his players, how they all are together on that day at practice can change everything that happens at practice. Because if you have too many kids in red, you might need to say, hey, you know what? We need to have a light day. We need to have a fun day. We need to cancel practice for today. Or everybody's in green, and today we're going to go at it. We're going hard, right? But we have coaches who have never paid attention to that. Kid walks in the door, got his practice plan. We're going to go. And if you're not performing, I'm on top of you. You're either not going to play or you're going to get reamed the whole time you're there. Right?
Yeah.
And it's going to feel like total crap when they leave practice because the coach was all over them. But that kid wasn't in a ready state to perform. And
there could be obviously multiple reasons for that. Like, you mentioned unless you start to know your kids, right? And I tried to be really in tune with that. And I remember this one practice very specifically when my girls came. And sometimes they're just like, oh, coach, can we have a fun day today? Right? They just because they didn't want to practice or whatever. But there was this one particular day where I'm like, can we have a fun day today? And it was a tone like everybody, and I could see them on the floor, and they were just like, as a group, like I could see this is not going to be a good practice. Why am I going to fight this? Right. And we had a fun day. And I will tell you, every practice after that was completely different. The way they responded was completely, and I was like, oh, like, they're kids, right? If I give them one fun day, then they're gonna ask for 2 and 3 and 4, and it's gonna become a pattern, and all of a sudden, they're just not gonna want to practice. That wasn't the case. We stopped, we paused, we had a fun day. In the fun day for them, I said, okay, well, what does that mean? What do you want to do then? They said, I want to get to know my teammates a little bit better. Can we just talk? And then what we did is, okay, I'm like, okay, let's see where this goes. And I kind of let them lead a little bit. And so we sat in a big circle. We had a basketball, and whoever had the basketball got to talk. And then someone would either raise their hand, I want to do it next, or if I asked you a question, I would roll the ball to you, and then you had to answer whatever the question was. And that was, I was actually, I was fine with that. I loved it, right? Everybody got to know each other a little bit better, and there were some silly questions, some serious questions, and they asked me stuff too that they didn't know. Like, they asked me about my childhood when I was their age and what I did, and they asked me, they're smart kids. They asked me about my ex-girlfriends even, like, or who I dated in high school. And, anyway, it was a fun day, right? But they needed it. And I just think we just need to be aware of that. And I know sometimes it sucks. It's like, ugh, I play, the crosstown rival on Saturday, and this is our, we only have so much practice time. And but again, remember they're kids, and sometimes you just have to, that I wouldn't even call it a sacrifice. You just have to, be in tune with the needs for them, and it could end up being a very positive outcome.
100%. And that's one of the reasons that I'm so emphatic about the daily readiness, right?
Yeah, I
because
love
it
that.
gives you
Yeah,
it gives you insights. And the saying that everybody's fighting a battle you know nothing about,
right.
and everybody is.
Absolutely. Yep.
Everybody is. You
Yep.
are, I am, everybody
Yep.
is.
Yep.
And when you start tracking readiness on a daily basis and you can see that a kid is in red or has been in red for the past 3 days, and you're tracking their mood and their stress and their sleep, well, something is going on in that kid's life, right?
Yep.
And it's giving you insight to have a true coaching moment, right, with your player
Yeah.
to say, what's going on? Talk to me. How's it going? What's happening? Because it's most of the time it's going to be one of five things. It's either the nutrition, hydration, it is their social life, their family life, or their school life. One of those five things.
Times all five, right?
That's it. That's
Yeah.
it. And that's
Yeah.
but those five things will impact all the things based around
Absolutely.
performance.
Yeah.
So if we can address that, think about that as the foundation of your
That's a good
team.
point. Yeah.
And that's what it's all about. And then from there, you then know what you can do to push them to make them better players, right?
Can you repeat
And
those five one more time, just so we're
yeah,
clear on the five?
it's either their nutrition,
Mm-hmm.
they're just fatigued, that they just haven't gotten enough, in them for
Yeah.
the energy level they need. Hydration, family life, social life, school life.
Mm-hmm.
Who broke up with their girlfriend?
Yeah.
Their boyfriend. Which one of them just got in a fight with their best friend? Which one of them's sister just got cancer.
Right.
And if they don't tell you, you're never going to know.
Mm-mm.
But then if you don't know, then you're going to be treating them differently than you would if you did know.
Yeah. That's a good
And
point.
you also might be able to engage, you might be able to assist, and you might be able to
Mm-hmm.
improve. And if you don't know and you just show up to coach, X's and O's, you're
Yeah.
never going to advance those kids.
Yeah. One of the things that when I was a high school coach, and my wife and I, and she said it, and she was alluding to the fact that, you never know what's going on in their life. And, you don't want to do this all the time, but it's one of those things where it's like, look, you have myself and my wife, if you want to talk to my wife wasn't part of the staff or anything, but she was, she volunteered herself. Or if you get caught in a situation where you need a ride and there's something you can't get a hold of anybody or whatever, like, you know, I will come with my wife and my daughter and we'll pick you up or something, along those
Right.
lines. Again, you got to be careful with that. But at the same point, it's more about letting them know that you care and then they will care, right? They're not going to perform unless you do. And then that way you can get to some of these things that you talked about. I had this, and again, it's not just high school. I had this discussion yesterday. I saw one of my better players and I was like, just body language was just off, right? I mean, her shoulders were down, she didn't have the normal smile on her face. She was moving very slowly. I pulled her aside, just her and I said, "What's going on?" "Oh, I'm just tired." I'm like, "Okay. Like, do you need some time? Do you need some water? Do you need a break? What do you need?" Like, she's, "No, I'll be fine. I'm just a little tired." She was practice almost, we just started practice and now, I'll pep up a little bit, right? And she did. She got better. She wasn't her normal self, but, you know, you just got to look. You got to do the reads, right? We talk about doing reads in basketball. You got to make the reads on your kids too and know when they're.
That's right. That's right. And
Well, let's put a bow on all of this. So, what is the message you want all the coaches and parents listening to this to walk away with? Second question, and then follow up with where they can learn more about what you're doing, maybe contact you if you're open for that. But so let's put a bow, like let's sum all of this up.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things, if I had to sum it up, is that we have to focus on actual player development. And what is player development is, yes, tactical, physical, mental, physical, all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
But it's also developing the individual. It is doing what is best for the individual player and helping them to get to where they want to go, right? And part of this ties into understanding and knowing your player, right? Knowing your player, not what the parent expectation is for their player.
Yeah,
It's what
yeah.
is, and really this also ties into communication. right? And I feel like in a lot of our sports, we don't coaches are busy, they're so many
Volunteers a lot
just
of
doing
times, right?
volunteers,
So,
they're doing the best they
mhm.
can, right? One thing I wanted to mention on the volunteer you brought up earlier about rec, right?
Yeah.
And I think that one of the struggles that I have personally with rec, and I love rec. I think, that's where you go and play the game and just have fun, right?
Hmm.
Whether you're good or
hmm
bad, nobody really cares.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. You can go out with your best friend and he can be horrible, but it doesn't matter because you're
Doesn't
just running
matter.
around having fun
Yeah.
and laughing and joking and whatever. But I think that in the true aspect of rec, you also want kids to get better. And the way our structure is today, whether it's rec basketball or Little League baseball, it's luck of the draw because you have a volunteer parent who's going to coach that team, and they may not have any clue how to coach that
Yeah.
team.
Right.
They just
Yeah.
volunteer to do it to be part of the process, right?
Yep.
But if we had if rec leagues or programs had a better structure where they had like some form of a curriculum that was age-based
You mean like
curriculum.
coaching youth hoops? Is that what you're talking
Yeah,
about?
there you go. Coaching you do. There you go. Perfect. But their
Good
curriculum,
setup, coach.
yeah, their curriculum is structured so that when a parent signs up, they know exactly what they're going to coach
Yep.
every session, right? So that all the kids on that team, because some kid could have you as their coach, and some kid could have Jason Kidd as their coach, and some kid could have a mom that's never played basketball in her life as their coach,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
She's
Yeah.
gonna care, she's gonna love those kids to death, but she may not know what she's doing when it comes to the basketball stuff, right?
Yeah.
So it should be set up so that every one of those kids is getting taught the same thing the same way so that they can advance year after year after year versus luck of the draw that I got this really good coach who made my kid better this year. And the other team, that kid, just because he got picked on that team, he didn't have a chance, right?
Yeah.
So I think that focusing on player development across the board, understanding that it's not just about shooting threes and dribbling the ball. You have to be able to focus on all aspects of developing holistically. And
Yeah.
I think that if I'm putting a bow on something, that's the big bow I'm putting on it, is holistic development. But I also think that you have to have some objective measurements along the way that are not just game stats, right? That can be able to, that are transparent so that everybody can see where they are. And then they understand how they're progressing and where they're going in order to get to where they want to go. The next level means different things to different people. One kid could make the junior high team, one kid can make the freshman team. One kid can make the JV team, and so on. It doesn't mean that every kid's wants to play in the pros or can
Right.
play in the pros or play in college or whatever it is. So how do we just help them get to the next level, whatever little next level that is, so they can continue to advance and continue to play and continue to learn, so they can continue to develop and have fun
Yeah.
and enjoy the game because sports is a microcosm of life.
Yep.
And the longer they can play the game, the more life skills and life habits they can learn that will take them into the real hard thing, which is adult life, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And adulting is never fun for anybody, but
It's not
it does
easy,
help
right?
to prepare them for that
Yeah.
process, right? So we
Yeah.
want them to play the game longer.
Well, and
That's
and again, plug for you guys too, and what you're doing at Aces Nation is that you're taking a holistic approach and it's a pretty comprehensive set of tools. So, if you are looking for something like that, go to acesnation.org, right, to find.
Yeah, acesnation.org for
Yeah.
sure. I mean, we have a podcast, we have a blog. Our blog was just ranked number 11 in the country for youth sports. So we try to put out, our whole thing is how do we educate, how do we equip, and how do we empower? We don't
Mhm.
work with individual athletes. We work with coaches, teams, and organizations to give them the tools they need to be able to improve player development and improve coaching efficiency.
Yeah.
That's really what it's all about.
Well, Coach, thank you. I appreciate you taking the time today and going through all of this. It's been an amazing conversation, very insightful, and I think it will help a lot of coaches out there just work through the performance issues and understand what it takes to be a better coach and to improve their players. So thank you very much.
Oh, thanks for having me on today, Bill.
And if someone wants to get a hold of you, where can they find you?
There's links on our website that they can hit any time.
And say that URL one more time.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. acesnation.org.
Okay. And I'll put that in the show notes as well.
That'd be fantastic. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, absolutely, Coach. Till next time. Coaches, thank you for tuning in, and check out Coaching Youth Hoops for all your basketball coaching needs. Tim, till next time. Take care.
All right. Take care, Bill.
The right window treatments change everything. Your sleep, your privacy, the way every room looks and feels. At Blinds.com, we've spent 30 years making it surprisingly simple to get exactly what your home needs. We've covered over 25 million windows and have 50,000 five-star reviews to prove we deliver. Whether you DIY it or want a pro to handle everything from measure to install, we have you covered. Real design professionals, free samples, zero pressure. Right now, get up to 45% off site-wide, plus get a free professional measure at Blinds.com. Rules and restrictions apply.
NFL football season is here, which means when you switch to Verizon, it feels like touchdown. Because you get NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube on us when you buy an eligible 5G phone on select unlimited plans, which means you can watch every out-of-market game every Sunday afternoon. And it's all on us. Now that's the Verizon way to kick off the NFL football season right. Switch and get NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube on us, only with Verizon.